I watched a lot of your your performances from Carson, and like your voice is just like so powerful. Like, did you? I was just wondering if you had any kind of like vocal training growing up, or like some training from your mom, or did you just born with it, born with the magic?
Well, everybody in my family earned their living with their voice. My mom and my dad, and even later my sister. Uh, but my mother did was kind enough to send me to her vocal coach for a few lessons on how to breathe, and how to sing from your stomach, and certain things that helped. But generally, it was just me.
How did you get the role of Pinky?
Well, let's see if I'm trying to remember that. One night, the director and his assistant and a couple of people came into this club on Sunset Boulevard called the Central, where we were playing, and they asked me to come over to the table when we took our break, and the director said, "I love the way you improvise up on stage, because I don't just sing. I talk a lot between songs and stuff like that. Do some funny stuff, or just all kinds of talking." He said, "I like the way you improvise." He said, do you do any acting?" I said, "Yeah, I've been in a couple of TV shows and sitcom. I played a cop here. I played a school teacher there. I played a gangster there. So he told me kind of the story of the movie. He said, "I'd like you to come in and audition." So I came in, and the part I auditioned for was the part that Clancy Brown eventually got.
No.
And that's kind of the way he saw me at first.
Oh yeah.
And but I guess Clancy was more right for the role. So then they said, well, why don't you be this guy Pinky? I said, "Sure, anything." That was my first movie that I ever did. And boom, that was it. And then he said, that guy who was on stage, stands next to you on stage, that big guy with the big head. That was Jerry Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
He said, he said, this is a kind of a weird movie. He's kind of weird looking. Maybe put him in there. In a non-speaking role.
Yeah.
It's just you see him here and there.
He's not really weird. He just got like really big curly hair.
Yeah.
That makes him stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was a real brilliant thing to put him in there. So,
especially in the 80s. Yeah, definitely is like an 80s style right there.
Oh yeah, one of a kind looking guy. So that was a lot of fun doing that movie, because the director let me, Rick Richter was his name.
Mm-hmm.
He turned me loose in there sometimes. I have to say the words, of course.
Yeah.
But he said, I love your improvisational stuff. He said, "Just tell me where you're going to stand, so I can have the camera follow you, know where you're going to go." I said, "And otherwise, do whatever comes to you." And I mean, that gave me so much freedom. Usually they want everything to be precise and exact. Stand right there, say this like that. But so that was an awful lot of fun.
Did you give any tips to Peter about being the lead singer?
No,
He just did it all on his own.
He's not the kind of guy that takes kindly to tips.
Oh, okay.
But what we did do, we did help him learn how to look like he could play a guitar.
Yeah.
He actually is a good musician. He plays a little mini trumpet.
Oh
A
yeah.
little
Yeah.
tiny,
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
and he plays it well. But he had never played guitar before, so I brought my guitar player
Uh-huh.
and I over to his house, and show him how to look like he could play it.
And I think you were playing bass. That was something unusual. Usually you're playing piano or you're playing guitar. I
Yeah,
think
on
you're
stage
playing bass.
I always played guitar. Yeah,
Was it
but
bass, right?
yeah, it's
There was
not.
three other people that had the guitar, including Banzai. But there was a cool thing you guys did. You did like a up and down with the guitarist. It was kind of cool.
Well, that's kind of
In
from the
sync.
theater. We do
Yeah.
choreography,
Yeah.
too. So we figured we'd throw that in. That was our idea to do
Yeah.
that.
That was a cool scene.
Yeah, and then there were some scenes that they had to cut a half hour out of the movie.
Oh yeah.
It was a lot longer, the original cut.
Mm-hmm.
But the studio thought that the movie was going to be a huge hit, so they wanted to make it shorter so it could fit 5 times a day in the theater instead of 4. As it turns out, the movie flopped. But except on video, video was #1 for 6 months. But it didn't do well in the theater. I think cutting all that space out
Mm-hmm.
made made the jokes go by too fast.
Yeah.
People, jokes need time to breathe in between, and so the cutting. Like there was one scene at the end that I really loved doing.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that important a scene, so that was part of what got cut out. But at the end, where we're beating up the bad guys,
Mm-hmm.
and they had stuntmen playing some of the bad guys, so you could hit them and everything, and you wouldn't hurt them,
Yeah.
And I said to Rick, the director, I said, I got an idea. I said, in the whole movie, we don't know why my name is Pinky.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what if, going back to Pinky's childhood, I lived with my grandmother, and I loved my grandmother very much, and she's the one that named me Pinky. So while I'm beating up the bad guys,
Mm-hmm.
they get their nourishment from sugar,
Yeah.
if you remember.
Yeah.
I said, so I'm searching them for weapons, and I find in the guy's pocket this great big pink snow cone,
Oh.
and I hold it in my hand like this,
Mm-hmm.
and I think of my grandma,
Uh.
and she's dead now, and I loved her so much, and I start to cry. He said, can you cry in one take? You want to waste time. So I did it, I got these tears running down my face, and I'm holding this pink snow cone in my hand.
Wow.
It was
That would have been
hilarious,
classic.
but it had to go, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, obviously, the shows at the end. I mean, people walking everybody all at the end, and you've got that blazer with the pink shirt and the pink tie, the pink shoes. I was like, oh wow. I mean, that's like totally 80s right there, and it's
And
awesome. A lot of people don't. A lot of people can't pull off pink, but in that scene, even with that hat, it's like wow. It's like you looking sharp.
I did my little twirl there.
I know, yeah.
Now you know what that is. That comes from my early years in show business. When I first started out, I had some hit records in the '60s
Uh-huh.
with a lady named Judy Clay, and we were the first interracial boy-girl duet singing love songs. Nobody had done that before. We played the Apollo Theater in Harlem, which is the epitome, the pinnacle of black show business. And here I am, this skinny little white boy up on the Apollo Theater stage, when at the same time, this was a month after Martin Luther King got murdered, and across the river in Newark, New Jersey, there's riots going on. So the theater management was scared that Judy and I might cause a riot. But we went over great, and we became, in fact, we went over so well that they changed the order of the show, and he put us on right before the star. He said, because ain't nobody going to follow you two. And so what I learned from the old timers at the Apollo and the old black theaters is how to compete, you know, because, you know, show business is competitive. It's not always vicious competitiveness. You know, it's, you know, entertainers, we love each other, but we still want to say, oh yeah, follow this. You know, there's a lot of that. And so that little twirl I did in the promo at the end of the movie, that was my way of upstaging everybody else, you know, and shamelessly. But you know, that's the tricks you learn when you're in that old fashioned kind of show business, how to grab the attention for yourself.
Did you end up keeping any of the props or any of the wardrobe from the movie?
No. All we got was a lot of nice, cool pictures, though. You know, they had a still photographer there on set all the time, and so got a lot of those kind of memories.
No. But tell us about working on Blind Date with Bruce Willis and Kim Basinger, Lara Cat. That club scene.
Oh, that was
this club scene, and those songs. Those are three of the best songs. Oh, What a Night, Anybody Seen Her, and of course, Let You Get Away.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun, man. You know, the director was one of the all-time great directors in Hollywood, Blake Edwards.
Yeah.
And you know, just look him up, and it's like.
Well, he did. I mean, we know he did the Pink Panther series. He did another classic in the '80s with Ted Danson and Howie Mandel called A Fine Mess. It's really funny too. But Blind Date is like
we did
one
of
the best.
Fine Mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did one song in that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he did Victor Victoria.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just great. He's a great director.
Oh yeah.
The cool thing about Blake was
the movie 10 with Dudley Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The great thing about Blake was he hated traffic, and he lived up in Malibu. So we never shot after 4 p.m.
No.
So during that scene that you're talking about, the nightclub brawl, he was a tricky guy, and he wanted to get a real natural reaction from me. So in the middle of the brawl, he sends 2 stunt women up to try to fight me. Well, you know, I mean, I came up at a time in rock and roll when nightclubs were pretty rough places, and there was brawls every night in some of those awful clubs. And you know, and I mean, I can't tell you how many times I picked up a microphone stand and swung it at people to keep them away from the bandstand. So that was the kind of reaction that I gave when those 2 stunt women attacked me. Well, accidentally, in the scuffle, my leg rubbed up against something sharp, and it ripped my pants and cut my leg. So that the next day, this guy Joe Dunn, who was the head stuntman, who had been with Blake Edwards for 20 years, you know, he keeps his whole crew as people that he's been with for that long. I mean, he's a very loyal man. And Joe Dunn comes in with all the stunt guys, and he brings all this. He brought in a stuntman's cap, a stuntman's T-shirt, a stuntman's badge, all this stuff. And he said, Billy, he said, after yesterday, he said, you are an official stuntman. You're one of us, boy. And I was so proud of that. I mean, that was like winning an Oscar, you know, to be accepted by these tough guys. I mean, and these stuntmen are really, you know, they're real tough, rough guys and gals, you know. So that was to me, that was a great honor, you know.
Was there any more songs on the shooting, or was it just those 3 songs that you performed?
Those 3. Originally, it was 2, and they needed another song for the dancing, which was Anybody Seen Her. We wrote that specifically for the movie. Me and a guy named L. Russell Brown, who was a great songwriter, friend of mine. He wrote Tie a Yellow Ribbon, Come On Marianne by the Four Seasons, Sock It to Me by Mitch Ryder, Knock 3 Times, a lot of great songs. So he and I wrote a song to the rhythm that the people were dancing to. And so that's how that got done. I got friendly with Kim Basinger.
Mhm.
You know, she very shy girl. If there's more than two people in the room, she just hardly talks at all. You know, unlike most actresses, you can't shut them up. But the first time we talked was in the makeup trailer, and it was just me and her and the makeup girl, and boy, she just once we got talking, she was like a little chatterbox, you know, and
Mhm.
so you know, she would call me up from time to time, and we'd talk for like 2 hours on the phone,
Mhm.
uh, and she came to see the band a couple of times, in fact, she came about 2 years ago, right before COVID. She came to the club to see us. I hadn't
Mhm.
seen her in many years, but she was a very nice girl. Of course, Bruce, I knew him before
Uh-huh.
when he did that show Moonlighting.
Mhm.
I happened to see the first episode, and I looked at him. I said, "Boy, this guy, he's got it, man. You know, he's going to be a star." I mean, I could just tell because at the time, most TV actors were pretty boys, and Bruce, he's a good-looking guy, but he's not a pretty boy. You know, he's just a guy. You know, a guy like a real guy. And so he comes in the club, and and he came up to me, you know, actually in the middle of the set,
Mhm.
and he starts talking to me. He said, man, I just wanted to tell you. He said, Peter Weller owned a bar in New York, and I was his bartender.
Oh wow.
He said Peter bought 200 copies of your album, and he gave them to all his friends. And I got one. He said, I've been a fan of yours ever since before I came to New York. I said, wait, aren't you that guy that's just on that new show with Sybil Shepherd? He said, yeah. I said, dude, I said, mark my words, you're going to break out of that show and be a big star. I promise. And I was right, of course.
Yeah.
But he started coming to all our shows, and until the show got so big that people started bothering him, they wouldn't leave him alone, and he just couldn't come out in public anymore. Poor guy. And then we ran into each other on Blind Date, and so it was like a reunion, you know. And he was one of those celebrities that was a real guy, you know. He wasn't a jerk like so many of them are. And you know, he'd come hang out with us, and you know, and until he couldn't anymore, until you know the fans wouldn't let him.
Did you ever have a chance to jam with him, with Bruce Willis? Because I know he did music for a little bit, and he was actually in there in Washington. There used to be Planet Hollywood, and he came to the grand opening of Planet Hollywood. A lot of big celebrities came that year, but yeah, he performed a few songs. I think even Don Johnson performed with him too.
Yeah, they jammed together.
Well, the first time I met him, he told me he played harmonica. And I said, oh my God, he's not going to ask to play harmonica. And of course, you know, I kind of felt sorry for him. So it wasn't that crowded that night. So I had him, and he actually plays pretty good harmonica, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, so every once in a while we let him come up on stage and play harmonica on a blues song or something like that. Yeah.
Let's talk about your producing. You produced Lou Rawls. Was Lou Rawls the only albums you produced? Or did you produce Ray Charles too?
Well, I produced Lou and Ray doing a duet together.
Okay. Because I was listening to some of the songs you did with Lou Rawls, and there's a song, You Can't Go Home. And I'm listening to the background vocals. I was like, is Billy behind him singing? So
Yeah,
I was just wondering if you got, I mean, the voices were so perfect. I was like, it's got to be Billy back there behind him. Is that the only song you've sung like background vocals for? Have you like secretly sang for somebody else?
No, I'm not a background singer. That background is me, Lou, and George Benson singing.
Okay, and you know he was the guest guitarist, right?
Yeah. George played guitar on it, played a wonderful solo on there.
Yeah.
And that, of course, I wrote that song.
It's a great song. It's like,
yeah. Lou ended up doing 7 of my songs.
oh wow,
Pretty cool. that one and If I Were a Magician, or I think he did a wonderful performance on that one too.
And he did Remove the View too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one became, as a result of him doing that song, it became sort of a modern day blues standard.
Yeah.
He's not the first one that did it. A guy named Johnny Adams, a great singer out of New Orleans,
Mm-hmm.
did it first. But I presented it to Lou because I thought it would be absolutely perfect for him.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it was. You know, a great solo by Cornell Dupree, the great guitar player. And later on, Eric Burden did a version of it,
Oh, nice.
and a whole bunch of people you never heard of recorded.
Maybe, you never know. We're pretty good with most, so.
Lou has that really commanding voice too. Lou Rawls, that you'll never find.
Yeah.
A really commanding voice.
It's funny you mention that because when he did If I Were a Magician, we had trouble with him on that. And then I realized, I said, the songs that he excels on are songs where he's the winner in the relationship. You'll never find another love like mine, woman, you know? Or the other song, Your Good Thing Is About to End, woman, you know? But If I Were a Magician required him to be vulnerable and take that losing ride, you know, if only I could have you back, you know, that kind of thing. And he wasn't good at that. You know, he had too much of an ego for that. So what we did was at the end of the day, we went to dinner and we got him drunk.
Oh.
And then the next morning he had a terrible hangover.
Mm.
And so he was vulnerable then, you know, and he did a great job on it. But you had to do, you know, sometimes you gotta figure out ways to get the performance that you want out of your artist, you know. That's how it worked with that song.
You have so many hats. You have producer, singer, composer. You write books. Is there something that you haven't done yet that you want to achieve?
Yeah, there's one thing, but it's too late for me at my age. My one regret is when I was coming up, tap dancing was sort of out of style. And I've always loved the great tap dancers, Fred Astaire and Bill Bojangles Robinson, the Nicholas Brothers, people like that. But I never bothered to learn tap dancing. I could dance pretty good when I was a kid. But, you know, nowadays I'm 77 years old, dude, you know, so my legs aren't as strong as they were. But I wish I had tap dance, you know, because I love it, man. You ever see on it was Jimmy Cagney's birthday the other day.
Oh, yeah.
And on Facebook, whenever it's somebody's birthday that I like, I post a video of them.
Mm.
So I posted a video of Jimmy Cagney and Bob Hope tap dancing together.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw that one.
Was it the Oscars, like later on in the Oscars when they were older or younger?
It was at a roast.
Okay.
Or at least it was supposed to be at a roast. And they hop up on the bar, and the two of them try to outdance each other.
Oh, wow.
And Cagney, who happened to be a great dancer,
Yeah.
and I wasn't expecting Hope to be that good, and Hope was really,
Oh, yeah.
really a good dancer. I guess because he came up in vaudeville,
Yeah.
you know, and so but he kept up with Jimmy Cagney. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
I know they always show that classic scene in Yankee Doodle Dandy with Cagney. I know TNT shows it every so often on their Facebook. It's classic.
Yeah. That was kind of, they were redoing that scene.
Okay.
And Cagney was doing that same dance in color now later. There's another one too where he comes down a staircase. You ever see that one?
Mm-hmm.
He dances as well. Oh man, yeah. He's one of my favorites, Jimmy Cagney.
He was a versatile actor. He was a versatile actor. Yeah, he was a gangster too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's also that, I can't remember what movie it is, but I know there's a famous scene where he smashes a grapefruit in the wife's face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably his most famous scene of all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And of course he does some great death scenes, you know, where the FBI shoots him to death.
Top of the world, mama. Isn't that this famous line?
Yeah. Oh, he's so good, man.
when you went to go preserve all of the classic artists like Little Richard and Coasters and all those, is there anything else in the archives that you want to preserve? Because like those tapes are deteriorating just like movies, and we need to preserve everything, before they're all forgotten.
Yeah, I've done a couple of hundred reissue CDs over the years, and I've done. If I haven't done the ones that I wanted to do, somebody else has. Like I did a great one on Duke Ellington. I'm a big Duke Ellington fan, and I'm a big Count Basie fan. And I did, for each of their 100th birthdays, I did CDs for them. So I got to do that. I never did any Louis Armstrong, but he's been pretty well covered, because he's one of the greatest artists of the century, the 20th century. So I don't think there's anything that hasn't been reissued on him. And the same with Billie Holiday and some of those. But of all the rockers, they've been done. I got to do Little Richard's, all of his stuff. And yeah. I mean, there's not a lot left. There was one that I was dying to do. I don't know if you ever heard of Billy Stewart. He did that great version of Summertime, up tempo.
Oh yeah.
Chuck, summertime,
Yeah.
And that album, I was working in a black record store in White Plains, New York, called the Boss Record Shop when that album came out. And it was a little tiny store. And, all my customers were black. And the owner was black. And here's this little white kid who loved black music, working in this store. And I was alone there one day, and the distributor comes in, and he said, "Kid, put this album on the turntable," because in those days you'd play the records for your customers. So the first song that came on was "Summertime" by Billy Stewart. I said, "Oh my God!" And I think I had 3 or 4 customers in there at the time, and they started gravitating towards the turntable, and they started reaching in their pocket for their money. I mean, it was like, oh my God. And so the distributor gets this evil grin on his face, and he says, "So how many you want?" So I knew that this was going to be a big seller. I said, and I took a chance that my boss wouldn't get mad. I said, "Give me 25. And you know what? By the next morning, I sold all 25 of them. And I mean, so I ordered 100 more, and I sold all those. I mean, the album went crazy. And I think every black family in White Plains had that album eventually, because it was just one of the, it was everything. It was soul, it was jazz. It was a unique singer, like he sounded like nobody else. Great old standard songs like Summertime and Foggy Day and all those. And for years I wanted to put that album out again. And my friend was in charge of the catalog at Universal, which owned Chess Records by this time. And I used to go, Andy, I said, "Man, come on, man, let me put out that Summertime album by Billy Stewart." I said, black people of a certain age they're gonna remember that album. They're gonna want it. He said, man, he always had an excuse. And so, years went by, 20 years went by, and I kept bugging him all the time because I just knew this album had to come out on CD because it was well recorded, and and finally about 3 years ago, I got somebody to let me put it out, and it was like, finally, man, it was like, one of my goals, that, how there's something that you feel the world needs to have out, and I get very passionate about things like that. Important music. I don't want it to die. And so I feel good about that.
There's a station I listen to all the time called Kixie up here in Seattle. It's like one of the best. My dad used to hear it all the time on AM, and it was like, and then you put it on the computer or you're on digital. Now it's like so sharp and everything sounds like brand new. It's just heaven.
Yeah.
To hear all the classics, all like crystal clear.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I heard you have a new album coming out. You want to tell us about that?
It's been out. Unfortunately,
No.
it came out just as COVID hit,
Mhm.
and so I put it out on CD Baby,
Mhm.
and their warehouse was closed down because of COVID. So I had a couple of radio stations were playing it, man. Back east, and the jazz stations in New York were playing it, and the jazz station here was playing it. I mean, it was just like I got a shot, and it's what it was is I haven't written songs in a long time, but I went through some old things that I had laying around, and I found 10 really great songs that had never been recorded by me or anybody else. Well, one of them Lou had recorded called Moonglows, and I just said, these songs deserve to be documented. And so I got the best musicians I could find in LA, and I got a good little studio, and everybody was nice enough to do me favors and record for me at a reduced fee. And we went in and did the album, just never thinking it was going to make money, but I just felt that I'm the kind of guy that certain things deserve to be out there available. And I felt that these songs did and do. And so it came out. I said, because when Chip was teaching me how to write songs, Chip Taylor, he said, one of the most important things he ever told me was, he said, don't just try to write trendy songs for the moment. He said, try to write songs that you could picture people singing 20 years from now. He said, that's number one, where you make your money in the long run. And that's where you have a chance of writing a classic. So I've always tried to do that. I mean, occasionally I'll write just some funny thing or, fun thing that is for the moment. But generally speaking, I try to write songs that will last. And these were all songs that I felt that way about. And so I named the album Timeless, Billy Vera, Timeless, because the songs were timeless. And I'm proud of the album. And the playing on it is really terrific, and the sound is good. And in fact, I had the engineers were great. I mean, the mixing engineer was a guy that died shortly after, but he's one of the most famous guys. And same with the mastering engineer, Ron McMaster, who's done all the Blue Note jazz reissues and for Capitol Records over the years, and that's how I became friends with him. And he again, these guys gave me what we call bro deals, which means they didn't charge me what they would charge a normal person. So yeah, I mean, I like the album a lot. I'm kind of hurts me that it came out at such an inopportune time, but it's there if anybody wants to take a listen to it.
And it's on cdbaby.com, or is it on your website as well?
No, not my website. It's CD Baby or Amazon. I'd rather people go to CD Baby to get it because Amazon takes a cut, so I get a couple more bucks if you go directly to CD Baby.